Before the success stories, the progress, there was you. You who made a choice to grow, to inspire, to overcome your own challenges. At NASM, we're in service of your limitless potential because when you keep growing, we all get stronger. And we'll never stop making your journey our mission. Join the fitness leader. Become a fitness leader. Become a certified personal trainer.
You're listening to the NASM-CPT Podcast with Richey, winner of the Share Care Emmy Award for Social Storytelling and the official podcast of the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Hey, y'all, and welcome to the NASM-CPT Podcast. My name is Richey, and today we're going to be talking about rest intervals between sets to increase your hypertrophy. I know we talk about how much weight you lift. We talk about volume, which is sets and reps and intensity and weight. But what about the wait time between sets? Well, this one's pretty interesting because I see a difference. There was a time where it was really big just to rest at short periods of time, 30 seconds, 45, 60 seconds, and then go right into the next set Well, that builds up a lot of intensity. It doesn't create a lot of recovery, but is that good for hypertrophy? It might be good metabolically, but is that good to build muscle? Well, I decided to give this a little look into, and of course, whose name appears but Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, the hypertrophy researcher. So here's a study with Brad Schoenfeld and like 12 other et als going along with this in 2016. And it was published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research. Longer interset rest periods. I'm going to get this right. Enhance muscle strength and hypertrophy in resistance trained men. So what they did is they took 21 young resistance trained men, and then they had a short rest and a long rest. The short rest group was 60 seconds. The long rest group was 3 minutes. And for 8 weeks, they did 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps, total body workout 3 times per week, 7 different exercises. And here was the takeaway. All right, so I quote, testing was performed pre-study and post-study for muscles strength. So 1 rep max bench press and back squat. For muscle endurance, which was 50% of 1 rep max bench press to failure. And muscle thickness of the elbow flexors, triceps brachii, and quadriceps femoris by ultrasound imaging. So what did they find? Muscle thickness was significantly greater for the long compared to the short rest period in the anterior thigh. That's the front of the thigh, them big quads. I see you quads. I see you resting around and getting bigger. And so the increased rest will allow those thighs to grow a little bit more. So the 3 minutes between sets as opposed to 1 minute, 60 seconds, where they did not see as much growth. In fact, remember, it's significantly greater with the long rest group compared to short. And there was a trend for the greater increase for the triceps as well. But both groups saw significant increases in upper body muscular endurance with no significant differences noted between the groups. So when it comes to upper body endurance, they didn't really see any. And I don't know what you would think. I'm speaking for myself. If we minimize the rest and we did the same amount of volume, that the endurance would increase. But when they did the 50% of the 1 rep max bench press to failure, they showed that there was no significant difference between the two. So the study provides evidence that longer rest periods promote greater increases in muscle strength and hypertrophy in young resistance-trained men. So we must continue and see what other research says, because this was a small group, 21. These people were already resistance trained. Is there more information? Well, Gragic et al., and guess who one of the et als is? Brad Schoenfeld. In 2017, the effects of short versus long interset rest intervals in resistance training in measures of muscle hypertrophy, a systematic review. All right, now this is going to take us a lot further than just a group of 21. Systematic review. Systematic reviews are great. Now, they're not all randomized controlled trials, but there's studies that are not necessarily RCTs that are all part of the review that's done. And basically what they say at the end of it is that the current evidence indicates that both short and long interset resistant intervals may be useful when training for achieving gains in muscle hypertrophy. But the novel findings involve training participants using measures sensitive to detect changes in muscle hypertrophy suggest that a possible advantage for the use of long rest intervals to elicit hypertrophic effects. A systematic review suggests that maybe resting a little bit longer in between the sets can get you a little more outcome. Well, let's continue to look at another piece of information that was done later in the year by Gregic and Schoenfeld, along with 2 or 3 other writers, systematic review as well. It says the current literature seconds. And then it also seems that longer durations, greater than 2 minutes, are required to maximize strength gains in resistance-trained individuals. With regard to untrained individuals, it seems that short to moderate, 60 to 120 seconds, are sufficient for maximizing muscular strength gains. Now, this is not hypertrophy, this is muscle strength gains, but it's basically saying that if you rest longer and you're trained, you're going to get better outcomes. But if you're not trained, resting 60 seconds to 120 seconds, you're going to get basically the same results, because being untrained, you're going to increase potentially the opportunity to build strength without necessarily having to rest as long. The problem is most people that are new to working out probably want more rest. So what are the benefits then of shorter rest intervals? Now, I think really what you can look at here is that you still saw in all the previous studies that there were benefits for muscle size and muscle strength with shorter rest periods. Didn't matter if it was trained or untrained individuals. However, there's a study in 2015 by Villanueva, Lane, and Schroeder. 2015, it says short rest intervals between sets optimally enhance body composition and performance with 8 weeks of strength and resistance training. Caveat here is that this study was done in older men. 8 weeks of resistance training. Short rest was 60 seconds. Long rest was 4 minutes. All increased lean body mass. They all increased upper and lower body strength, and they all increased dynamic power and lowered body fat. But the conclusion in the study talked about the periodized high-intensity strength resistance training with short rest intervals induced compared to those that rested 4 minutes versus the ones that rested for 60 seconds in older men, though. So I looked and I looked and I looked, and I'm trying to find studies in younger men or younger individuals or people who have trained previously and see if there is a difference. There's a lot of studies that you can kind of look into with what's the difference between hypertrophy training and those rest periods? What's the difference between volume in those rest periods and the benefits of strength and hypertrophy? But we really don't get a lot when it comes to which one provides a greater metabolic demand. Well, I assume the shorter, but that's why you do research, because a lot of times we've found throughout the years that many seemingly presumptive, assumed, understood things, once we do research, are actually not as true as we thought. So even though I think that you would see what this shows here, applied professionals could optimize certain resistance training to incorporate shorter rest periods to get these different outcomes. The outcomes aren't necessarily going to be greater for strength or necessarily greater for hypertrophy. But when it comes to body composition, muscular performance, functional performance, the shorter rest periods may be very beneficial. And we look at that and we might say, well, what about circuit training? What about this? Well, I mean, that I think we can find the research on that. I'm really talking about what if we just do a set of an exercise and rest for less than 60 seconds? What are the beneficial outcomes of that? And are they greater in any capacity than waiting the 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 4 minutes, which is what we saw in 3 different studies that we looked at, with 2 minutes rest, a 3-minute rest, and a 4-minute rest. All right. Let's take a break. 2, 3, 4 minutes. No, we're not going to take that long. We're going to take that. It's great for an interset workout, but it is not great while listening to a podcast. So let me just go ahead and wrap it up here and say thank you for listening. And if you like the show, leave a review, like it, subscribe, share with your fitness friends and family, and then go on to whatever platform you're listening to and leave a review. We appreciate that, and it helps us out with the algorithm so that people can find us. And if you want to reach out to me or ask me a question, feel free to do so. Hit me up at on Instagram at dr.rickrichey, or email me rick.richey@nasm.org. Y'all keep inspiring people to fitness. Thanks for listening. This has been the NASM-CPT Podcast.